All right. We'll just get back to the conversation we were already having. But I wanted to introduce everybody to Krista Gordon, owner and founder of Tranquil Little One. But before we get into the business, how are you guys adjusting to COVID and the new realities at home? I wanted to ask, since, I talked to Jeff, your husband, for all the listeners to check it out. They both own businesses, and we're going to dig into that today. But I talked to Jeff. His episode came out a couple weeks ago, but we talked about like 6 weeks ago, like literally the week before lockdown, the Friday before lockdown, I think it was. It was. So how are you guys doing?
We are doing.
Yeah. That's the consensus,
It's been interesting. Right? Yeah. Interesting is the only word I can say, because I feel like every day is different. Mm-hmm. And with both of us juggling our businesses and the kids home. So we have a 7-year-old daughter and a 5-year-old son. One who is so our 7-year-old is in the public school system. Our 5-year-old is in a private preschool. Mm-hmm. So homeschooling's been interesting because they're at different levels.
Yes. I'm with you on that.
Yeah. And just juggling schedules. So I feel like we haven't really been able to find a schedule that works.
No, not yet. I agree. Neither have we. What?
Even after 6 weeks.
No, I'm 100% with you. We still like lose track of certain obligations, which you'd think it would be so much easier than in the regular time, because we have so many fewer obligations. All the kids' activities and classes are canceled. A few of them have resumed through Zoom and online, like they have jiu-jitsu classes on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we can't even, I'm embarrassed to say, we can't even make all of those religiously, because like the day just changes and morphs, and then something else is happening at that time. And there's no real reason, but it's happening. So here we are.
It is happening. It is. Yeah. Sometimes as we slow down, it's harder to fit things in.
Yeah, it has been for me. I fully am guilty of that, and I'm not proud of it. But my, everything. Like I'm a routine kind of person, even though I'm not built that way. I've programmed myself that way over the years, and it's not. It hasn't all died. I haven't let it go, but it's really not where it should be, and I know that. And there's no excuse. It just is. But I'm not, like, for instance, I part of my routine is meditation, and so we'll talk about that. And I do it. I do it not crazy. I'm not I'm not even good at it, but I do like 20 minutes a day every day. And
that's a lot. That's good.
I'm not
Give
doing
yourself
it,
some
though.
credit there.
I'm not doing it though. I'm doing like 15 minutes, 3 or 4 days a week, and it's terrible.
But that's more than some do, and it's still good for your brain.
See, that's the thing. Maybe everyone doesn't even need it. I do, and I need more than I'm doing. So I just need to get back to some rigidity. What is there anything good that you guys have noticed in this whole experience?
Yeah. So one thing I've noticed that has been amazing for me is how smart my kiddos are.
Nice.
And how resilient my kids are. At the ages that they're at school or daycare during the week more than they're home. Mm-hmm. And you hear what the teachers say, and, you get the reports and the good and the bad sometimes.
Right.
But I am so shocked at some of the things that my kids know.
That's awesome.
And it's been amazing. My 5-year-old son, not in kindergarten yet. Mm-hmm. We sat down the other day and I printed out some worksheets, and they were at kindergarten level. And I was like, we'll just give it a shot. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, why not?
And he looks at me and he goes, Mom, 5 + 5 is 10. I was like, yeah. And then he looks down, and 4 + 4 is 8. I'm like, yeah. Okay, you know this already, And
those moments are awesome.
Yeah, that's been really cool. And, we've been working a lot on social emotional aspects while we're home. I feel like my kids academically learn well. It's more the social emotional piece that's difficult for both of them. Mm-hmm. And so we've been working a little bit on that too. And, even just hearing my daughter say something like, I made this mistake. And it's like, okay. And then she's like, oh, I know how to fix it. I know exactly what to do.
Nice.
And it's like, that resilience to me is so cool to see.
Yeah, it's fun to watch too, because at the ages your kids are at, as you watch them sort of become the little people, You're watching. I mean, you're watching their nature in them, but you're watching your own parenting. You're watching your own work, your own dedication, and you're watching it all come to life in a little package. And it's so mine are a little older. Mine are 8 and 10, so they're not that much older. But it's fun to watch with each phase and each. Like my 10-year-old, when we hear him talking to his friends on Facebook has a Messenger for Kids app where they can video chat and all that. So we got all the boys and all their friends all connected with all their friends so they can stay in touch. And hearing him, not like eavesdropping or anything, but hearing him if he's in the next room or if he's sitting on the couch next to us, he's talking like a little teenager. And he's talking in ways that we never hear him talk. You know, it's just weird. He's like a more grown up version of himself. The way he presents himself to his friends, or it's so weird to see.
I had this conversation with one of my friends not too long ago that children, they interact so much in play when they're at school, right? They're interacting and it's very hands-on. It's very physically interactive on the playground, even in what they do in their classrooms. Mm-hmm. And that aspect of their friendships have been taken away. And the art of conversation, of actually just speaking to each other, is a skill that's being forced to be built right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to prove very beneficial.
Probably is. And my 8-year-old doesn't have those skills. He more like
he
starts making monkey noises and doing insane stuff on the video, and so do his friends. They're all just kind of going insane because they can see each other and they don't really know what it is or what to make of it.
Yeah,
But I say that, but then once he calms down a little bit, you hear him say, "So how are you? What are you guys doing?" You know, and they start to talk, which I think you're right. That's another unintended benefit of the whole staying at home and being sectioned off. Really crazy moment we had last night, speaking of it, as you bring up the not knowing what your kids know. We're sitting on the couch and both of the kids were playing games because they had earned that time. And so they're playing games. And my youngest asks, "What does a number mean when it's AA?" I was like, "I don't know. Those are letters. I don't know what you're talking about." And my oldest goes, "Oh, AA designates that it's a quadrillion." I was like, "What?" And my wife looks at me like, "Huh?" So we look it up, and yeah, it is. AA in mathematics is a quadrillion. I was like, how do you even know what a quadrillion is? I don't even know what you're talking about. So it's one of those moments where, he's going to be smarter than I am. I have no idea what he's talking about. He's 10.
I would not have known either. And the whole new math. So this is forcing mom and dad now to learn new math. Yep.
Because now you have to. You could escape it when they were in school, but now you have to.
I would always say, "Oh, you could just ask your teacher tomorrow. Mommy's not so sure." But now I'm, YouTubing, I'm looking it up. So it's forcing us to learn new skills too.
Yeah, which isn't a bad thing. I was going to say, for a positive note, one thing that's really hit home for me is how busy we were, and that I'm not really all that excited about being that busy again. So everything we were doing was elective, and because we like it, it was all good. And we're going to go back to most of it, but maybe we'll plan different. I don't know. Cause the biggest thing that's hit me just on a personal level is my wife and I are always around. We're at all the practices. We're those kinds of parents where we do everything we can to try to be there. And we're lucky enough that we can, cause we have flexibility, and it's a real but we're always like, "All right, grab your stuff. We're off to the next thing. All right, grab your stuff. We're running late. We had next thing." And for a month and a half now, we haven't been late to anything, and we're not going anywhere, and we're not moving on to the next thing. And there's been more just legit quiet play or talking, or, I have sleepovers with the kids. I slept over in their like bunkhouse last night. It's just stuff. You know what I mean? It is stuff with there's no what's next, which is,
yes, there's opportunity to pause.
Yeah. And it's pretty nice. It's for me, because it's just not my nature to pause. And it's, I don't know, feels good. I'm not sure I want to get rid of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for those who do thrive in the routine and the busy, I know this time is really, really hard. And, my kids I shouldn't say kids. One of my kids thrives in that much more than the other. Mm-hmm. So, we've gone through, I would almost call it a grieving process of that pace of life is just changed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is changed too. I mean, none of us know, and we'll find out, but I think it's changed. Sure. I really feel bad for people who maybe live alone and live in the city, you know, where you can't go out. Like we can go hike in the woods and do some stuff that you're not supposed to do, but we take steps and we'll walk off the trail if there's other people coming, and we'll stay 20 feet away, forget 6.
We've done the same.
But that's nice. And there's 4 of us, and we get to play and we get to be together. And luckily we all like each other, which is another bonus. But I mean, imagine living alone or with a roommate you hate, and living in the city where you just can't go anywhere. You can't go outside. Those are the people I feel like it must be. I have some internal like guilt about enjoying part of this, where I know I'm not supposed to because it's really horrible for others, and it really is. I'm not making light of that. So I have that weird. It's almost like a survivor's remorse thing, like the guilt, you know, that where I feel guilty for enjoying it, but there are aspects of it I'm enjoying.
Yeah, we have some family that, you know, they're older and they're in assisted living complexes or, you know, more of a nursing home facility, rehab facility. And this has been very hard for them.
Definitely. And my wife's grandmother turns 100 this month. Wow. And so she can't have a party. We can't visit, you know, nothing. I mean, we're not even allowed in the facility. She also lives in it. So I think we're going to go, and stand outside her window and you know, sing and wave, but that'll be the best that we can do. But that's a big deal. It's 100. I mean, you can't make an exception. I'm not saying that we should. I don't want to get her sick, put anyone at risk. I'm like, no point am I saying, stupid rules. We need to get in there and say, no, not saying that, but I'm just saying there are aspects of it that are unfortunate, you know, but those are the things that make me feel happy about the things that are good, but feel guilty about feeling happy about it.
It's a way of grounding yourself in all of it too, right? I mean, looking at both sides of the story is beneficial. Yeah. And there's a lesson there for your kiddos too, right? It provides you the opportunity to have that type of conversation with them and for them to see both sides of the story. Yeah. I think that's a very valuable parenting tool. Is to be able to talk to your kids about all of it. Oh,
huge. Being able to talk to your kids is a big thing, because you're not always talking to them about good things, like happy things. Right. You know, sometimes you have to have real talks, and I don't know, those are uncomfortable moments. Some people just avoid those, but.
Well, even this whole COVID period, talking to a child, let alone both of my kids have anxiety and sensory processing issues. So for them, the idea of this virus, just the idea of it, not the reality of it, the idea of it in and of itself was something that we really had to work through.
So do they sort of hyper focus and start to spin out of control, worrying about what ifs, and how does the anxiety manifest?
So they are very big thinkers. They perceive the world much older than their actual age. It's just how both of their brain works. And what happens is then it all spirals. So it becomes this big tornado inside of them. The older my daughter has gotten, she is now able to ask those questions. It does take some time. We have to kind of organize her brain and get her to a point where she can find her words again. She tends in the fight, flight, or freeze. She's a freezer. And when she was younger, it was very scary. It was literally almost like she wasn't home when it would happen. But that started at around 3, and now she's at 7, and she's worked really hard with some wonderful therapists to get her to where she is now. But she asks a lot of questions.
Yeah, I know that feeling. Well, you're giving her some tools too. I mean, we're gonna get into that, and that's great, because you'll probably help her deal with understanding, internalizing, and controlling those issues a lot earlier than most kids or developing humans get to. I mean, I was always anxietal. I mean, I still am if it goes untouched, but I take a lot of steps to control it, and it makes a difference. I mean, it's literally gone from my life as long as I'm doing all the things I need to be doing, like exercise and meditation and all that stuff. And it's pretty miraculous how good it feels to not be that way, to not lay down in bed at night and just have your thoughts go until morning. And, you know, it can be pretty ugly.
It can.
But there's tools, and it is a thing that can be dealt with, but it's a thing you have to deal with. You have to look at it in the face and then deal with it. So that's awesome that you're helping her, you know, at such a young age. I wish that was even a thing when I was a kid.
Same. Same. And my parents actually say that to me all the time, because I'll start talking and I'll just be doing my thing and saying the things I say. And my mother will go, when you were her age, we didn't even know.
Yeah.
We didn't know that you perceive the world one way and you express in a different way, or, all these systems, being a kid's yoga instructor and the things I've learned, there's not just 5 senses. There's so many more and all these things. And I'll say something and my mother will go, how do you even know that?
Yeah.
And it's like, it took a lot of work and it was a big journey, but this is where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
And these, this is how I parent, and this is where my passion is.
Yeah.
So
a lot has changed. Not just in the diagnosing or managing of things like anxiety and ADD, but I mean everything about life from where our parents were. Like, it used to be that there was the food pyramid, and you're supposed to feed your kid 40% grains or whatever it was, and it's just it's all wrong. It's all wrong, and now we know that, and now we have science to back it up. Where it's so funny how the ups and the downs of what was normal that just not normal anymore.
Very true.
But since we're on the note of the anxiety and the tools, let's get into your business, the Tranquil Little One. So let's tell everybody what it is. What is your business all about?
So it's a holistic wellness business that really focuses on kiddos, and also assisting parents as well. So there's kind of 3 main facets to the business. One is yoga, which I teach now virtually. I've stepped out of the studio in schools and now I'm offering them via Zoom. But, it starts as young as 6 weeks, where I do caregiver and baby yoga classes. And those are really wonderful classes, which allow mom, dad, Mimi, whoever, to have some one-on-one connection time with their babies.
Yep.
And then going all the way up through, for me, I kind of stop at about 5th grade, because I really do feel there is so much you can teach a kiddo at that younger stage. Mm-hmm. The more they practice and the more they do, the more it will just carry forward in life. So I really do love to focus on the younger ages.
Nice. Tell me, before we go on to the next phase, what have the Zoom classes been like? So when you're teaching yoga over Zoom, it's like I mentioned earlier, my kids have their jujitsu over Zoom. And it's awesome. It's something, but it's certainly not what class is. How is it translated for you?
Yeah, so I had to do a big shift. A lot of the yoga practice that I do with kiddos in school or in class surrounded around community and sharing and props and taking turn and imagination and all of those things. So the props were removed, unless there's something that everybody has at home. There's not as much taking turn, although some of the ways I've adapted the activities or the games, each person has a turn to be the leader or the person who chooses. So they do have to kind of find the pause when it's not their turn, which is a big part of being in a social group.
Huge.
So it's something that I like to do in all of my classes.
Huge. Very difficult for kids at that age too.
It is, yeah. And, I found teaching parents right at the very beginning, if the student was going to be returning and taking multiple classes, that there's a way to hide their camera. So the child doesn't see themselves. That has proved very beneficial, because a lot of my kiddos that take class, they have anxiety as well. And they're using yoga as a way to help them. And seeing themselves on video was anxiety producing. And so I wanted to educate around that. And I heard great feedback about that. So I'm happy that I had that forethought, and actually said to parents, hey, you can actually let your kid not see themselves. So that's worked really well, and it's just a different level of teaching. I can't physically go over and say to the child, oh, you're having some trouble with that pose. Do you mind if I help you?
Right. You can't correct the posture. You can't. Yeah,
I can't. But it's forced me to actually use my language more, which has been interesting.
Do you have to allow some more slack in getting everything right, because you're simply not going to be able to get them to perfect the poses? But if I'm not crazy, it's probably more important that they're trying than getting it right. It's better to do it and do it okay than to not do it at all.
Yeah, and at the younger ages, the technique of the pose really isn't the main goal. It's more getting them involved and getting them listening.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the mindfulness piece of yoga. I look at mindfulness as, creatively engaging the child to be present.
Mm-hmm.
So I am not going to ask a 5-year-old to sit on their yoga mat and meditate for 12, 14, 15 minutes.
No.
It's not going to happen.
No, 3 won't work. 3 minutes won't work.
I can get about 3 at the very end of class. Once I've brought their energy up and down, they've, gotten all of what I call their wiggles out and their body feels centered and organized and calm. I can get about 3 minutes, but getting the children to actively think about nothing else but my yoga class for 45 minutes virtually has been an amazing win for a lot of families.
That's huge. It's probably an amazing win for you too, because I'm sure you've had to, as we were just talking about, adjust the way that you run classes. And I bet that there's lessons you can take back into the home when this is all over that you've taken 100%. Away from this. Just being a better presenter or captivator, just being better at using the words to maybe that leads to larger classes. Maybe.
And maybe some classes will always be virtual, because I've had people practice with me now that could never make it into a studio.
That's huge. And that's it's so true. That's we'll talk off the air too later, but something that I'm working on that I want to be able to bring to all kids. And there's, when you have structure, a class, and a place, only a few can make it by definition,
Correct.
So that's cool. You can actually expand by figuring out how to do this and do it well. And that way you can let more families have the opportunity. That's pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, my 2 little nieces have been able to take my preschool class, and they never would have been able to do that because they're always at their preschool, which isn't close.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that is great.
Yeah.
So now you can kind of open up to the world.
Yeah, it's been a really cool experience.
All right. So I interrupted you on the first phase,
okay.
which was yoga. What else do we go into?
Yeah. So I'm also a Reiki practitioner, and I have always loved to have Reiki done on me. And for those who don't know Reiki, it's basically taking the universe's energy, and the practitioner channels that positive healing energy and gives it to the person who is asking to receive it. And then the person receiving it will use it however they feel they need it to promote healing. So I am not actually healing anybody. I am just providing that person with extra energy so that they can take it and use it however they can. And
do you
one of the
have
things,
people that question you on that? Because it's very woo-woo sounding. So how do you deal with that?
Of course. So when it's a parent questioning me, I always offer them the opportunity to experience it themselves.
Yeah, nothing speaks like the action, right?
Yes. Yep. And when my daughter's anxiety was getting to the point that bedtime was a 3-4 hour process, I went on the search for more. And I found Reiki. And I became a Reiki practitioner for my daughter.
You discovered it on your path to helping your kids.
Correct.
That's cool. So it's not even something you brought in to the house, like as in before you were a mom. It's something that you've taken on to fix a specific problem, and you've seen good results?
I've seen amazing results.
Wonderful.
My daughter will ask. My daughter has become so aware of where her energy is and what is wrong that she'll say, "Mommy, I know it's time. Can we please do some Reiki?"
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I'm able to do it as a distance practice as well. So if you gave me permission to practice Reiki on you, I would be able to do it from my home to yours. And so one of the ways my clients have utilized this for their kiddos is to assist with bedtime.
Helping them take their energy down.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
It's interesting. Reiki, I know nothing about. Yoga, I'm into, and mindfulness, I think, is a superpower that people don't even understand. It, at least, in the way that it helps me, and I think helps anyone that does it actively. But Reiki, I don't know anything about. And it all sounds very woo-woo to people who aren't into it. And it's a really easy thing to roll your eyes at. But I also 100% believe in energy. And I don't think you need to be woo-woo to look at that. If you think about meeting an amazing person or somebody with, a personality that makes you really want to know that person or not want to know that person, that's an energy, and it's being transferred back and forth. You're feeling it, and you're changing the way that you perceive things based on it. So to me, it's not far-fetched. I just don't understand anything about Reiki. So that's why I was hoping I was excited to talk today and learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, the master who actually attuned me, so that's the kind of technical word for becoming a practitioner, she uses an analogy that I love, and it's basically a lamp that has a plug. And so, the universe is the lamp, right? That's the light bulb, that's the energy. And, you plug in the lamp, I'm basically the plug. So the energy is coming out through the lamp, and I'm the plug, and I'm pushing that energy towards the person receiving. And I think that that's a great way to explain it to people. And, if somebody isn't going to be a believer, they may not feel it.
Sure.
Because there's a mental block there.
Yeah, but that's the same with mindfulness too. They could meditate an hour a day for 5 months, but if the whole time they're doing it, they're thinking about how it's not going to work and they're not in it, then it's not going to work. Simple.
Right. Yep. So yeah, so much of my business is because of my kiddos and my big journey of really trying to help them as best I could. But my Reiki journey a lot of that had to do with my daughter.
That's really great roots for a business too, because not only are you a believer, but there's a passion connected to it as opposed to just like finding an opportunity and servicing it, which is nothing wrong with that either, but it's nice to have a passion connected to it. It's helpful fuel for when the bad times come, because they always do.
Yeah.
There's ups and downs.
Yeah.
Ups and downs, I mean.
Ups and downs is a good way to put it too, though.
It works, right?
Yep.
So the Reiki stuff, and then what's the last?
Yeah. So I also fell into essential oils, and it's been something that has changed my life. It's changed my daughter's life. My son is just starting to appreciate them for what they're worth. And again, I know there's a lot of people out there that are big essential oil naysayers, but I've seen firsthand how it's changed my health. And I've seen firsthand how the ability for a child to say, I'm sad, right? So first, I'm sad. They need to be able to identify their emotion. I'm sad. And then for them to say, I think I'm going to go smell my orange oil because I know that always makes me feel better. Right? So, which anything citrus is going to be uplifting just in how it, lights up your brain once you smell it. But that's one part of the process with essential oils too, is there's a coping skill that can happen there. I need more energy. I'm feeling a little sluggish today. And I would say, go smell your peppermint oil. Right. So I've taught my kiddos that there are ways to assist their emotions through just smelling an oil, not even putting it on their body. Which there are ways to do that as well, and to have it be a topical thing that we do. But I find that the sense of smell can be such a beneficial sense to utilize for kids.
Well, step outside of that for a minute, because I have no knowledge on that other than, realtors bake cookies for a reason. That when the house smells a certain way, it affects your mood. But just stepping outside whether or not the oils and the scent of them have any powers, it's a centering mechanism where the kid knows they can go sniff the orange oil.
Yep.
It doesn't really matter if it's orange or what it is. Well, maybe it does. That's not what I'm saying. But the point is they can go do that. It centers them and it allows them to correct their head, wherever their head was, because it gives them something else to put their energy into for a minute and sort of get 100%. Things right. And that, regardless of whether or not oils have an effect, that works. That's having a center that they believe in, that they can just go and release their thoughts to. That's good. That works.
Yes. So yeah, the idea behind working with families to potentially use all three of these holistic ways of just assisting their kids, it's worked in my home. It's changed my home in a beneficial way. And I just felt like there were potentially a lot of other families out there that were looking for more.
I'm sure there are.
Being traditionally offered to them. And so I have one friend who is a business coach, and one day she came over to me and she said, "You're giving away everything for free. You keep telling all these people all these things that that you've spent years learning. You have this skill, you have this craft. she's like, there are people out there that need you, but you gotta stop giving it away. And it was like a big aha moment for me. And then I was like, no, people wouldn't pay for this. And then I was like, wait a minute, I would pay for this.
I would have paid for this.
And in working with the families that I worked with too, I've learned so many different coping skills just in parenting my kids for who they are and for meeting them where they are. And so that's been something that I had just started doing before this isolation stay at home had happened, where I was really working one-on-one with families and saying, well, why don't we try this?
Yeah. Which it's incredibly, it's got to be incredibly helpful to families that at least don't know where to go next or what to do to get that center or that focus. I think it's cool. I think it's really, really like awesome that your business stemmed from your own journey with your kids and looking for solutions to real problems. And basically you found some, battle tested them, and then put that into a way you could help other families and move it forward. And I think it's just really cool because that's like a calling as opposed to, like we were saying, as opposed to just having a skill or something you can do, which is fine too. But it's to have that ability to help people and watch them grow. It's got to feel pretty good. And especially,
it does.
I lean in talking to you, I lean mostly on the yoga and the mindfulness only because that's what I know. That's the stuff that I really understand. But I know the transformative effect that it can have. And I think like we've done mindfulness work with our kids when they were younger, and they would have exactly what you're describing. A tough time, they'd get mad or upset or whatever it was, and they couldn't put into words what it was, but they were clearly boiling over or whatever. We would give them exercises on calming themselves down with meditation, basically. And it was helpful. I can't get them to sit down and do 10 minutes of meditation, nothing like that, but they can enter a guided meditation that'll go for 10 minutes, and they're not going to be centered in it, but it's still going to bring them back to a normal state. And it proved helpful to the point where they would know if it was time to go do it.
Yeah. I mean, self-awareness is a huge, huge benefit. If we could teach every child to be self-aware, what do you think that would mean for a whole generation of adults?
Everything. I think it's self-awareness and then self-confidence and compassion, because compassion comes from confidence, right? If you're always afraid you're going to get hurt, you can't be that compassionate. But if you're both physically and mentally, if you're strong enough to not be always worried about what's going to happen to you, then there's a lot more you can put out, and that doesn't come easily, but it's there. And I think exactly what you're saying. You have a whole different world if those are all the people. I mean, we see it playing out right now where there's people in power that do not have any of those skills, and there we can see the results of it. Yeah,
it's just I think about kids on a playground. And you always have the kids that are being the natural born leaders, and you always have the kids that are the followers, and that's a part of life.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nope. But what if you had the kid that was always the helper? What if you had the kid that was confident enough to know that they could go over to that kiddo that was having a hard time and to help them get through it?
Yep.
And I know there's a lot of people that may hear that and say, no, that's an adult's job.
No. That's an individual's job. That's a person's job, and children are people.
Yeah. And I just feel like if that's a skill that you can teach a child, to be able to see a kid having a hard time and be like, you know what, I think I might know what could help them. That's a world that I want my children to have.
For sure.
And my daughter is that child. My daughter is the one that will go and will help another kid. Sometimes it doesn't end in a good result. She puts herself in a spot that she shouldn't be in. And so then we have a whole nother conversation that we have to have. But I love when my daughter can help another child. And I also love when it's through a skill that I taught her or one of her therapists taught her.
What feels better than that? That's amazing.
Yeah.
Our kids are similar, and we've been teaching them that since they could speak. We're adamant about not only not bullying, but helping others. And if you see bullying happening, then you interfere with it and you stop the bullying. The bullies are not the thing to worry about. You can stop the bully easy. It's stopping the problems that make bullying happen and the problem that they lead to for the other kids. And my kids are, I'm proud that they've connected with that. And I've seen on numerous occasions the kids interfere with bullying and do something about it. I've seen them not be bullies in instances where other kids are, and just sort of, when they're feeling out social situations, not like a bully that's doing it all the time, but the way just kids that, jockey for power in certain situations. But I've also, like you said, when sometimes they inject themselves into the situation, and it might not go right from somebody who sees it. Like my oldest got in trouble for yelling at a girl, but he yelled at that girl because she was making fun of a special needs student. And the teacher who yelled at my son and got him in trouble didn't see the whole thing go down. But my wife works in the school, and she heard the story from some other adults on what Abel actually intervened into and why he was yelling at that other girl. So he came home and he was not in trouble despite getting in trouble in school, right? And so they also know that, going back to part of that confidence, my kids know that if they do the right thing and they get in trouble, they're not going to be in trouble when they get home. It's,
right.
I've always told them if a bully was ever picking on them and they have to react to the bully and the principal calls me, it's the principal who's in trouble, not them.
Yeah. And it's such a huge concept though, and I guess it's one of the, I don't know, maybe some people could say that, again, I'm pushing an adult issue down to a kid, but to learn when it's okay and when it's not okay, it does make it a little hard, especially if you have a child that is not a black and white thinker, right?
Well, nothing's black and white. I mean, life is hard. And I think teaching the kids to make those decisions, sometimes they're going to make the wrong one, and then they're going to have to face that. But those are all lessons, and those are all things that take that child forward, where the child who didn't have to make similar choices is going to be behind in their development on how to be independent and how to make those choices. I'll
never forget the day my daughter was trying to describe disappointment to me. She said she was young. I think she was in kindergarten. She had a tough transition into kindergarten. It wasn't easy for her. And she came home one day and she said, Mom, I sat there and I knew I was supposed to be doing something and I just couldn't get my mind to do it. And my body didn't want to do it. And then I ended up not getting the star on my paper. And then I was sad, but it wasn't really sad. And it was like this whole story. And I said, Caitlin, what you're feeling is disappointment. And she's like, but I don't like it, and it was like, and it's like, yeah, nobody likes to feel disappointed, but it's a real feeling and it's going to happen more than once in your life.
Yeah. What you just described, I still go through. I still do.
Of course we do. I mean, I feel disappointed on days that I can't go to my yoga studio and teach. And instead I'm on Zoom, right? I mean, right now, a lot of people are feeling disappointment. It's a real thing. And children need to learn those emotions. And they need to learn what to do with them, just like being mad.
Or bored. They need to learn how to be bored.
Yeah. But, we say all the time, it's okay to be mad. It's what you do with the mad that's different.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, you're mad. You're going to be. It's
mad.
An emotion.
You can be mad and stamp your feet. Guess what? There's a lot of benefit in stamping your feet. And I've had some parents say, oh, if my kid stamps away from me, that's disrespectful. My answer to that is no, it's not. That's a healthy coping skill. They just put energy input into their body. They stamped. They let their body get that energy out. They didn't hurt anybody. And they were able to be mad, and that's a part of learning who you are and learning how to handle those big emotions. And so, I don't know, it's a different way to look at it, but I tend to think if you teach a child how an emotion feels in their body and then what to do with it.
Yeah.
If it's movement, mindfulness, breathing, smell an essential oil, stamp it out, jump up and down, scream at the top of your lungs, but not at anybody, right? Those are all healthy ways of dealing with emotions. And that's kind of everything I want families to know.
I think that's great. And I think that's an important thing for you to tell families. I think that's a really, really important lesson that probably most people don't have or internalize. That's, because any show of anger is like, not only should the child not be doing that, it's disrespectful, or I don't want to face that, did I do something wrong? My child's angry and I don't know how to control it. Am I supposed to control it? I think there's a lot of parenting doubt, self-doubt that in those moments that also you react emotionally because you don't really know how to handle the situation or how to de-escalate it. I'm guilty of it.
Sure. We all are. Even the most mindful parents are guilty of it. I mean, being a mindful parent is a lot of effort.
Yeah.
You know, staying present in that moment and not letting your own emotions get in the mix and, all the things, as I call them.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Make us, especially in the heightened sense that we're in right now, where you're all home all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a lot of all.
Yeah, it sure is.
And so there's a lot of, I try to think sometimes about if I've asked my child 5 times to go brush their teeth and they're still not going to brush their teeth. Mm-hmm. If my voice gets louder, that doesn't mean they're going to hear me. Mm-hmm. So how can I get them to brush their teeth? And for me, for kids, it always goes back to play. So I'm going to make it a twofold challenge, although in the yoga world, you're not really supposed to use the word challenge, but in the kid world, it really gets their attention. So, what's the most creative way you can get to the bathroom, right? Mm-hmm. Or what animal can you walk like to the bathroom, making it a trick almost to get them to move closer to where you want them to be, right? Or do you want to do a wheelbarrow to the bathroom? That would be so much fun, turning it into something other than go brush your teeth.
Yeah.
And then once I get them to the bathroom, I say, what would be really silly? Can you brush your teeth and put one finger on your nose the entire time you do it and never take your finger off your nose? Or, just something that is so not even remotely anything they would think to do on their own.
Yeah.
They're going to brush their teeth.
I'll try it because for us, we definitely get louder. And that's what ends up working is the loud. I'm not saying it's a good way to get it to work, but it's the only sometimes because my kids, I'm going to try it, but my kids, they love to play like all kids. But if I were to make a game, like what animal can you walk like to the bathroom? That game's going to go an hour before they touch a tooth and they're going to evolve on it. They're going to start wrestling as those animals. It's going to, my kids are insane. And, but I'm going to try it because I don't like the yelling option. My wife doesn't like it either, but we always end up there, And so I'm going to try it. I'll let you know how it goes.
You could set a timer with it too. And you could say, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to be whatever animal you want. But when that timer goes off, it's time to go in the bathroom and put one finger in your ear while you brush your teeth and balance on one foot. I don't know, because they're older, they could do that. For younger kids, I wouldn't recommend balancing on one foot while they brush their teeth. But,
what they like to do is get their toothbrush, come back out and engage in conversation. That's what they like to do while they're brushing their teeth. Yeah, so that no teeth get brushed whatsoever. And then they have to start all over again after mom and dad, we'll start answering their questions too. And it's like we're in a different spectrum. And then wait a minute, brush your teeth. What are you doing?
Right. No, in our house, it's chewing on your toothbrush is not brushing.
Right. It's not.
It's not. That doesn't count. The dentist would not approve.
We had to make one of them start buying his own toothbrushes. Then he suddenly stopped chewing on his toothbrush.
That is something I would not have thought of.
It worked.
That's a good one.
It worked.
That is a good one.
So when we're not in the COVID lockdown, you now have Zoom classes, but you also you bring the services to yoga studios and schools and home, right?
Correct.
So those are all really different things. Let's talk about the school. What's that work like?
Sure. So for the school, it's typically, I'll highlight there's one Montessori school that I've been working with for a while now, and I go in every week and I teach their toddler class. And, most people would say a toddler class, what do you do in a yoga toddler class? And it is a lot of, animal influenced or, theme influenced movements and, mindful movement, getting them in the present. So, it's in a gym-like space and it's 11 toddlers and 2 teachers and it's 45 minutes filled with fun.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Yeah. So that's what it's... sorry.
No, it's okay. I didn't mean to talk over you. How do you get, it's toddlers, so it's probably a different answer than it would be like 3rd or 4th graders, but how do you get them to focus all at the same time to do, to act like an elephant or a giraffe or whatever the pose they might be doing? How do How do you trick them?
Pure silliness.
Yeah. Silliness does work with kids. That's a good answer.
Kiddos love when an adult acts like what they don't think an adult will act like.
Yeah.
And also creating an environment that is competitive free and is things they know will happen every week. They know that I'm going to start that class with the same song where we wake up our body. Mm-hmm. And then we go through 4 or 5 of the same movements. Then we do our breathing. Then we hop like a frog. Then we walk like a bear. Like, they know it's all about to happen. So that consistency and routine is key. And then there's that play in the middle where I use different props. And again, this is at the toddler age. It would be different for older kids. But, if it's the shaker eggs or if it's balls or if it's tunnels, they know that time is coming. Mm-hmm. And then they know that we end class the same way too. So I would say that it's very rare that I have 100% of them doing 100% of class.
Sure.
At any given moment. But what was really cool is there was a student of mine that joined my toddler preschool class via Zoom, and I would see her light up. Her whole face would light up when I would do something that I had done at her school.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, putting her back in the place.
Yeah, and just even if it was something that she didn't do at school, she knew it because there's so much learning that happens just by watching and listening.
Yeah, you're not kidding. So, is this, as you move forward and the business grows, is the school one of the ideal ways to get it done because of that repeatability? Like, even at a studio, it's whoever shows up for class, right? So it's the school seems like there'd be a certain ideal aspect to that where you can inject that repeat, even with older kids, injecting the repeatability, injecting the knowing what they're going to do, but then doing it. Because that's really everything in any skill you want to build. It's consistency in doing it. It's the practice that matters.
And having those teachers present during the session too has been really amazing because they'll see what helps certain students or what students gravitate to. Sure. And I actually have had that conversation where they're like, oh, we reminded them that they could do this breath. Yeah. Or, we let them get up and shake their sillies out and then sit back down. Things that we did in class that they saw were successful, they can then utilize in class at time that I'm not there.
Yeah. And when you're doing the in studio, we can go back to the school and talk more. We can go anywhere we want, but the studio one, how does that work? Is it something that the studio promotes, the child-based class, and then people sign up so who's, because you go to different schools, right? I mean, different studios.
Yeah. So before all of this, I was in 4 or 5 studios. And each had different offerings based off of what they knew their population was. So, at one place I did just baby and tots. I didn't do any of the older, because I could do it on a morning where they didn't have adult yoga classes, but they knew their community and their population. And there was a lot of young families in their town. So I would really work with that studio to see what they felt would bring people to the studio. Mm-hmm. So it was different in every place. And usually it would be that they were registering with the studio and then I would, receive payment almost like a contractor base.
Well, sure. Yeah. And it allows you to go to multiple towns and multiple locations, accessing a lot of people because, do you have goals of opening your own school or is it more beneficial to be in multiple towns?
So I don't know. I mean, my husband and I have always joked that it would be wonderful to find like an old barn somewhere that I could have my studio space downstairs and he could have his office studio space like up in the loft, and run his video production business out of there. We've joked about that. We've joked about, becoming landlords and getting the commercial space and all of that. I don't really know. I don't know. It's been hard enough just being a business owner. I don't know how much further I'm ready to go yet. Yeah.
And it seems like with your niche that, and I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, but it seems like with your niche, it might be better to have your foot in a number of communities than to have one place where people have to come to you because there are a lot more, it seems like you might be able to connect with more people, for the size of the classes and the amount of the kids that you could help because the harder you make it in one location makes it harder for parents. the harder you make it, the less people are going to do it or commit to it, or they'll come once or twice and then it falls apart. It's like with any activity, that most of them fall apart and a couple of them keep going. So, and I could also be very wrong, because there's also great yoga studios, karate studios. There's a lot of great places that are in a location. But I wonder because it seems like from what you were saying today, it seems like the best case scenarios are the one-on-ones in home and the school with the repeatability, right? So
the way I've taught in studios have always been session based. So it would be like a 6 or 8 week session.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, to help promote that kind of coming back in and being able to practice.
Yeah.
So that I have found to be successful in the studios.
Yeah, because the biggest mistake is to think of it as a one-time thing, right? It's not a fix. It's not a thing you're going to benefit from the one time. You need to bring it into your life.
Yes, and try explaining that to a 7-year-old.
No, it's their parents that have to understand.
I just did that last week. I have to do that one again.
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, and then again.
Practicing.
And then again, and then again, and then again. You mentioned that you learning things as a business owner and not knowing whether or not you want to have a dedicated studio and stuff. What else have you learned? Because you guys, they're both pretty recent businesses, and you're both doing it kind of at the same time. Never mind this whole COVID, monkey wrench thrown into the mix.
Yep.
But let's even say pre-COVID. What are you learning, especially as this is kind of a dual journey that it's different roads, but you're both on it, right? And you're both on different paths. So what are you learning? How is it impacting your life to be a business owner, good and bad?
Yeah. So I'm learning how different the world is when you leave corporate America, because I worked in corporate America for a very long time. And so dictating to myself what I'm going to do every day is a lot different than having a boss. And when I first started my business full time, I was way too hard on myself. I was looking for everything to happen really, really fast. I was getting really, really frustrated and very overwhelmed. And so it took a lot of self-practice to kind of sit back and say, I am doing all I can. It's okay if it doesn't happen fast, right? Like I had to put a little bit of what I preach to all the kiddos right back on me. So that was a big shift for me. And also I think just from a family standpoint, when I worked in corporate America, my day was done at 4, but teaching in studios for kids, I have 5 o'clock classes. I had, so getting into that dinner time where I wasn't home anymore, that was a big shift for the family.
Yep.
So having that conversation with my kids, like, it's okay if I'm not there. I'm teaching from 5 to 6 and then I'll be home and then we'll do our evening routine all the same.
And you might have been there from 3 to 4 or from 11 to, 1. That's the thing that you can bring into your life is some flexibility where it doesn't have to be in a 9 to 5 regimented, area.
Right. Yeah. And I had to remind myself that I didn't have to be teaching every day. Because when I first started this full time, my goal was to be teaching 7 days a week.
Yep.
And then I realized I'm not old, but I'm not young. And teaching to kids is a big energy drainer, right? Because I'm promoting the mood of the class. They're going to follow my lead. And so when I'm in a room of 11 toddlers, if I'm acting tired, they're not going to be engaged.
Nope.
And I didn't realize how draining that was going to be until I all of a sudden was teaching that much. And I was like, wow, 14 classes a week is a lot. I don't think I can sustain this.
For sure. I think everyone I've had on the podcast, me included, one of the things that always comes up is that your plan can't stay your plan. You need to make new plans and you need to adjust because what you thought prior, or even what, like mine's 19 years old, and what I think every year has to be adjusted because every year is different than what you plan for it. That doesn't make planning not important, but it makes your ability to realize that things have to change as you go based on reality becomes more important. It's not about the business plan, or it's not about my goal was 7. If I don't make 7, it's a failure. Maybe you learn and you readjust the goal and you readjust what's going to work, because 7 might kill your business because your energy is low and you're not doing a good job and it's not going to work.
Right. Yeah. So it's a matter of finding that balance. And I went in full force and then realized I was kind of on a road to a disaster. And so I had to step back and I had to be a little more strategic, and I had to have one day where I wasn't in a studio, or I wasn't in home, or I wasn't in a school. And that was my day where I could actually sit and do my books and not feel bad about the fact that I wasn't teaching. Like, that was my office day, but I didn't get there right away. It took me a little bit of time.
Yeah. And you're not even where you're going to be next year. I mean, the whole thing is a journey, and the whole thing is adapting and changing and evolving. It doesn't matter what the business is. That's what happens. Right.
Yeah. And even my home will evolve, because by then I'll have 2 kids in public school. School ends at 2:50. Do I do after school program? Do I not? Do I pick them up right at the end of the day and not teach in the evening? Do I not? It's like, who knows?
Right. Or do you pick them up in the afternoon and then they're there until dad gets home, and then you teach in the early evenings? Or, it's flexible. It depends what you want to do and what works for your family. So aside from your path adjusting and how many classes you can do on a weekly schedule, what else is it? What else is changing in the home, being that Jeff's got his business too? And so there's got to be a lot of juggling, because, and I'm just guessing here, but when you own a business, you started to allude to this. I own a business, right? So my work doesn't happen 9 to 5. I might get a frantic phone call or text at 6 a.m. It might be 10 p.m. I decide whether or not I'll respond to it. But regardless of whether you respond to it, you're going to pay attention to it. You're going to be aware of it and decide whether or not it has to be dealt with right now. And that sort of stuff, it can sort of not exist with a 9 to 5. But at the same time, the 9 to 5 locks you in and it shuts your day down, where I can come home, 12 to 2 if I want to and play. And then I can just work again when the kids go to sleep if I have loose ends to finish up. So, but my wife, in all fairness, my wife stayed home for the first 10 years with the kids. She works now, but that gave us a tremendous amount of flexibility. Plus, me owning the business, I had tremendous flexibility. So we were really, really lucky. So I'm curious, with 2 people starting businesses, what's that like in your house? It's got to be fun, energetic, but a bit chaotic at times, because this has been a long way to wind up this question. But sometimes you have to have colliding things to do, right? So how do you figure that stuff out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, pre-COVID, we were lucky enough to have family and friends that could help, so on Tuesday nights was dance. I was in a studio. If Jeff had to work late, we would call Grammy, and Grammy would go pick up, the one from preschool. So that was really beneficial and helpful. And, we have a shared calendar too. That kind of helps, where if I know I need to connect to somebody, I'll look in the calendar and be like, oh, wait, Jeff has an all-day shoot that day, or a video shoot, or, he's booked back to back. I can't do it on that day. So, we've utilized that kind of technology to help us. Now in this type of environment, it's who's going to be working upstairs, who's going to have the kids downstairs, and then when are we going to flip. And that's when I say every day is different, because I have different, networking meetings. He has different meetings. He's working really hard to keep his business afloat.
I bet.
In the video world, he can go do a shoot in an empty building for a realtor, which is awesome. Yes. And he wears his mask and he can do it. And that's a great way for him to continue work. For me, my work is continuing over my computer.
Right. You got to adapt.
And so when I teach, I'm downstairs in our playroom turned into my yoga studio, even with my one-on-one clients. And that's where I am. So, just juggling and teaching the kids to understand, like, when mommy's teaching, she's working. Yeah. It's hard for them to get that and to grasp it, but they will. Like, mine get it now. If dad's working, dad's working. If mom's working, mom's working. And I'm not saying that works perfectly, but it usually only takes 1 or 2 guys. I can't talk right now. I'm working. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, and I think too, and again, I'm going to go into my whole giving parenting tips here, but teaching them when daddy has his earphones on, because he has a big, headset that he uses when he's editing videos. He's working. just little things like that they can, they peek around the corner and they're like, oh, he still has them on, but giving them that visual clue. And the other thing that we've started to do, which has been helpful, is building in a small amount of time in the morning and a small amount of time in the afternoon where it's all four of us together doing something together without a screen.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's huge.
Giving them that opportunity to connect. And my daughter is old enough to tell time. My son isn't, but saying to them, Daddy's working until 11 o'clock. We can't bother him. Right? We need him to be able to have time to focus and concentrate. So, my son will say, is Daddy done with work yet? And my daughter will go, it's not 11 o'clock yet. So again, just building in those cues have been helpful for the kids.
Yeah.
And also for Jeff and I to coordinate.
Right.
And that's become like a nightly thing where we open up the calendar and we're like, okay, how are we going to get through tomorrow?
Right. What's tomorrow bringing?
Yes. Yeah,
it's crazy because now with the kids having in our town, the kids have virtual classes with their teachers and with their classmates. And so it's not just, and my wife's the teacher, so she has to teach virtually and be working on that sort of stuff. So not only is she working on homeschooling the kids and getting their curriculum through, but then she's coming up with, well, how is she going to teach, outward to the students in her class? And she teaches in a special needs classroom. So there's extra challenges where it's hard enough to get a kindergartner to engage on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Now have that kindergartner have autism, and it's even harder, so they're trying to figure out how to do it, and it's no easy task. So yeah, same thing as you guys is we have to figure out every day, well, all right, so when do the kids have meetings? When do we have meetings? Who's going to be where in the house to avoid the most noise? Who can have some background noise in it, and because we don't have enough.
Hope that you all have enough screens.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. I mean, 4 people potentially having something to do at the same time. I mean, that's a lot.
Yep. Oh yeah. And with ours, mine are a little older than yours. So at this point, it's 4 people are going to have to do something at the same time. Luckily, we do have we have the screens. Because with my business, we have a lot of screens anyway. So luckily I can just bring them home.
A little perk, right?
Yes, there are perks, there are perks. That's why I like having this show. There's good and there's bad. And then, for me, the good always outweighs the bad just because of the way I like to lead my life. But the exact way that I like to lead my life would be a bad for other people. Some people are better off in a 9-to-5 or a corporate job, but there's nothing wrong with that. It depends on your aptitude and what lights you up, what makes you feel good. That's why I like to have this show though, because I get to connect with a lot of other people. And the whole point of talking to you and to Jeff and to all these other people is everybody's journey is different. Everybody's problems come at different times with different aspects, and everything's different, but there's a few things that are always the same, in that nothing stays the way you plan it. It takes grit to get through. It's not going to be easy, but there's also a lot of rewards to it. Like in time, you can control your time, whether or not you burn it all with work or you don't, but it's up to you. You make the decisions, and those are huge for me. And when I was younger, I was the workaholic that would, spend all the time working. It's all I wanted to do. And it would just be, I don't know, just going for it. And now, and for years now, I just don't operate that way at all. But I've learned that so I can give 100% when I'm working, but then when I'm not working, I'm not working. And it's been a big shift, because it's certainly not the way my DNA is programmed, but it's been something I've learned over time, really since having kids. Since my first was born, I just didn't want to be that. So I wanted to do something different, which has been nice.
It's a constant journey. And I'm working really hard on reframing my mind and not thinking too far ahead and doing the what ifs. It's like, when this is all said and done, what will my business look like? Because I don't know, and worrying about it isn't going to get me any closer. No,
worrying about what you're doing and and how you can do it better. So that's like, if I had a real lesson over there's a lot, but if I was going to pull out a lesson over the 19 years in business, it's look again at your customers, and are you doing everything you can do to make their experience with you the best? Are you giving them? Stop wondering if it's in scope. Yeah, of course you have to, and like your business is a little bit different with scope, but I have to make sure that it's managed and that we're going to be compensated for the time spent. But but not like an accountant, not to the dime. If it's going to come down to who gets a little more, the customer does, because you have to make it amazing, or else they've got a lot of options. And if you hold yourself to those standards, you will do better as a business, because the people who feel that they're getting something above and beyond stay loyal and they stay good customers. And it's like, that's a hard lesson to learn, because at least when I was younger, trying to, grow, it would always come down to micromanaging that relationship of trying to balance what we're getting paid, and more than I should have. Now, when I look back, it should have been more about always pleasing, at least to the point where you can. Sometimes my dad always taught me, in clients, you have the good, the bad, and the ugly you have to get rid of. They're not going to do anything for you. But the bad ones can still be good. You can turn them good.
They can. Well, sometimes you learn from the bad ones.
Definitely. And that's one of the ways they can be good. Yes, you learn from them and you can adapt. We're already over an hour. So do you have anything else that you want to talk? I know time flies. These conversations are awesome. Do you have anything else you want to touch on that I haven't asked about or walked us down here today? No,
it's been wonderful to share. This has been great.
Thanks. It's been fun for me too. I've enjoyed the conversation. Let's put a plug in it. We'll do another one when we can sit face to face and get some. But where can people find out about you? Where can they learn more about how to contact you and all that sort of stuff?
Sure. So I do have a Facebook page. It's under Tranquil Little One. My logo is a little rainbow bubble that has a child meditating in the middle of it. So that's my brand. I also have my website, which is www.tranquilllittleone.com. And one thing that I've started to do throughout this time is every day I post a parent tip, which is either a mindfulness resource, a movement resource, or kind of highlighting an activity that you could do with your child. And I try to make sure I'm doing a big age range there, because I have followers with kiddos all different ages. And then if I'm teaching any classes, that will be posted on both my website and my Facebook page.
Awesome.
So that's where you can find me.
I hope they do. Thanks for talking to me today. Hang tight for 1 second.